Good morning, everyone, and welcome, and thank you for coming to our First Friday presentation. My name is Kathy Fair, and I am the treasurer of the Clarkdale Historical Society and also the director of public and school programs. So I'm happy to welcome you. I would like to introduce, first of all, the board of directors members who are here. So if you are seated or can step in, please stand up. I want to acknowledge all of our board of directors members, please. I don't see everybody, but we're getting close. Right, so this dedicated bunch of people have worked very hard to put this event and other events together. This is the final First Friday presentation for this spring. The next time that we will have a presentation will be in October. Okay, so please keep that in mind, First Friday in October, that you can be back here. I just want to give you a couple of little things. You know how you got in here, that's how you would get out if there was a problem. And also there are restrooms on both sides of that lobby area. So I would like now to introduce... Oh, thank you, Mike. Please turn your cell phone off or to silent so that we don't disrupt our speaker. And I then would like to ask Cindy Emmett, our Board of Directors immediate past president and operations director, and she will introduce our speaker.
Okay. I'm sure you can hear me, right? We're so pleased to see all of you here today, and we're so pleased to have David Grasse as our speaker. You're going to learn so much, and you know, Jim Roberts lived in Clarkdale and actually died in Clarkdale. So there's a lot of story about that. But let me tell you about David. Oh, okay, that was... So David is a third-generation Arizonan. He lives in Payson. I believe he was born and raised in Tucson. And he has an undergraduate degree in history and a master's degree in information resources and library science from the University of Arizona. He's a member of the Arizona Historical Society, the Western Writers of America, and the Arizona Library Association. Grasse is the author of 4 published books. There will be 5 soon.
Thank you.
And please take a look at his books on that table over there. We are promoting his books, and I'm sure he would love to sell you a few books today. Most of his writing is about Arizona territorial history. And he has numerous articles. He remains employed, this is important, as a reference librarian at the library in Payson. And he says it's because writing Western history does not pay bills. His books are for sale. Please take a look at them on your way out. And I'm very, very pleased to introduce David Grasse.
Appreciate it, thank you. Wow, that's loud. Okay. All right, give you a little background on this. Jim Roberts actually related to him. And I've been meaning to do something about him for some time now. I started the story about him, started writing a history. This is due to the fact that my great aunt, Frances, married into the Kirkland family. And Jim married one of the Kirkland girls, and so it's one of those things sort of related through marriage, which is kind of cool. Once I started finding out a little bit more about him, especially the ending part, the big finale here in Clarkdale, I was like, this guy's kind of fascinating. When I was working on the book about Commodore Perry Owens, I ran across him as well. He was involved in the Pleasant Valley feud. He fought with the Tewksbury's, but we'll get to that in just a moment. This is one of the only known pictures of him. Great mustache. I wish I could get one like that. Anyway, start at the beginning. Oh, I made it work. Cool. Roberts was born August 2nd, 1859 in Bevier, Missouri, to Frank and Alice Delilah Roberts. His father was a coal miner, and his mother kept house. By 1880, I guess that's 1880, when the census was taken, three of the oldest siblings, including Jim, were also working as coal miners. So it seemed really that didn't suit him. They had 6 children, but I don't think he was really happy being a coal miner. So next time, and we don't hear anything about him. There's a big gap in the history here because we get the census records, but that's really about all. If he was a coal miner, probably there's no reason to write about him. According to the next thing we have for him, he arrives in the Arizona Territory. We don't know exactly when, but the Great Register of Yavapai, where they recorded the voters, shows him being here in 1886. He was 32 years old by this time, and he was residing in Indian Gardens. Okay, so... And that's pretty much about all I know about his early life at this point. I'm still doing the research on this, so. Okay, the Pleasant Valley feud. There's a misnomer. Okay, so originally Jim got here, and his intention was to raise horses. He bought some really fine stallions and mares. He was going to raise a string of horses and sell them off, and that would provide his livelihood. Unfortunately, he knew both the Grahams and the Tewksbury's. Everybody knew each other back then. The Tewksbury's and Grahams knew each other. I'm not going to go too much into how the Pleasant Valley War starts. Basically, Don Dodera, if you ever get a chance, Don Dodera's book, A Little War of Our Own, is probably the best resource for it. Basically, the Grahams and the Tewksbury's invited the Grahams from Texas out here. They became friends. They were ranching back and forth. And then a guy named Stinton moves in, big cattleman. And he starts accusing both families of stealing from him. Finally, he approaches the Grahams, and we think he probably picked the Grahams because the Tewksbury's were half Native American, and the Grahams were Anglos. But he approaches the Grahams and makes a deal with them, saying, if you turn state's evidence on the Tewksbury's, I'll let the cattle rustling charges against you go. And this starts the feud. Jim becomes involved in it due to the fact that some of these blooded horses he's raising get stolen. And when they're finally found, they're in the possession of Graham patriots. Immediately, he's not happy about this, obviously, and so he sides with the Tewksbury's. Basically, he's with them now. 1887, although the war had been boiling up for a while, 1887 is the big year that it really gets crazy. There's Old Man Blevins, who was allied with the Grahams, goes out hunting and goes missing. The Blevins boys, there's 5 of them, and they start going looking for him. And they immediately think the Tewksbury's have done something. We really don't know what happened to Old Man Blevins. They found his rifle many, many decades later, but nobody knows what happened to him. But by this time, they're so antagonistic towards each other that the immediate blame goes on the Tewksbury's. And so 4 of the Graham cowboys, including Hamp Blevins and John Payne, ride over to the Middleton Ranch where the Tewksbury's are known to be staying. And at one point, Hamp Blevins is heard to say, they want a war, we're going to start a little war of our own. It was probably kind of a big mistake. These guys come riding up on horses. The Tewksbury crowd is inside the cabin. Later, the Grahams claimed they just came to get drinks and food. We can't say exactly what occurred, but the next thing you know, it explodes and they start shooting. The Tewksburys have the advantage of being inside a cabin, so they're shooting out the doors and the windows. These guys are on horseback, so they're perfect targets. Hamp Blevins gets killed, and so does John Payne. In fact, and all four of them get hit. The other two get wounded, but they are able to get away. We do know that Jim Roberts was there. Jim didn't like to speak about the Tewksbury War or the Pleasant Valley feud. In fact, he said very little about it. He told his son some things, and what we know of it came from his son, who repeated these legends later. Hugh was his son. He said that his father told him that it was Jim Tewksbury who did all the killing. That basically he was firing, but Jim never said he killed anybody. He said it was Jim Tewksbury who came out and he took out both those guys. And they think that he was just an amazing shot. However, this sort of does start Jim's reputation. Jim being involved in this shootout, they're like, okay, now he's allied with them. We got 4 wounded people, and he probably shot somebody. So his reputation is starting to grow as a gunman, not in a good way, because these killings it's a feud. These killings are basically considered a murder. After the Middleton Ranch, the Tewksburys run. They go up into their mountain hideout, and they're there for a little while. About a couple of weeks later, the Grahams ride on them again. Again, it's a big bloody mess. The Tewksburys have the high ground. We know Jim Roberts was involved with them because he went with them up into their hideout, and the Grahams try to attack it, and the shooting starts. The Grahams have the low ground, and they just got shot to pieces. Finally, there's so many Grahams laying dead, Graham partisans laying dead, that they petition the Tewksburys who still have the high ground. They're like, please, let's stop this. Let us bury our dead. And the Tewksburys just sit up there with their rifles and say, yeah, go ahead. We'll just watch you. They basically threw them all into a cavern, threw some dirt on them, and they left. So, now, Jim Roberts isn't involved all that much longer in the feud. In fact, this seems to be the last part where he actually takes an active part in it. See, give me a second here. Sorry, page. And the next time that we hear about him is when they're indicted. They're called Sheriff Mulveron. Oops, sorry, getting ahead of myself. There's the Middleton Ranch. And I don't know who that guy is. And Yavapai County Sheriff William Mulveron comes down and starts looking for the Tewksburys and the Grahams. He's got warrants for all of them. This feud is getting way out of hand. He first stops in Young, where he runs into 2 of the Graham partisans. His posse kills them. Another Blevins off the map. And then he goes and rides after the Tewksburys. The Tewksburys, he finds them, and they agree to surrender peacefully, and he takes them back to Yavapai County. And they get a preliminary examination. Back then, once you were arrested, immediately, the first thing you did was face a local justice of the peace. In fact, he takes them to Payson first, and there they face the local justice of the peace. Justice of the peace looks at the evidence and decides whether a person who's committed a crime should be held to answer to the grand jury. Well, the Justice of the Peace in Payson's like, yeah, we got enough evidence, we got dead bodies, we're going to hold these guys. The Tewksburys, so the district court only came up twice a year. So basically, if you were indicted, you either sat in jail until the district court met again, which was about every 6 months, or you made bail and you went on your way and then came back when the when the district court finally met. So they get indicted, all the Tewksburys, Jim, Ed, Jim Roberts gets, I mean, there's like 5 or 6 of them who all get indicted. And at the next, and they make bail, they put up bail, and then they, and when the district court next meets, the grand jury indicts them, except the court decides that they're not going to prosecute them yet. They're going to wait till the next term of the court and then do these trials. Well, in the interim, and this happened a lot in this period, they would indict somebody. The court wouldn't have enough time to get to it because the judges traveled all around to all the counties. And so they only have so much time to actually hear the trials and hear the evidence. And if it ran long, then they just hold over the case until the next term of the court. Basically, so they hold it off, and they've been indicted for the killing of Blevins and Payne in December of 1887. They told it that this happens 2 more times. Finally, in June of 1889, the Yavapai County District Court dismisses the charges against everybody. And Jim Roberts walks. So do the Tewksburys. Okay, just so you know, this is the last part Jim Roberts really plays in this. After this, he kind of goes on his own way. The feud keeps going. Jim Tewksbury dies basically from pneumonia and from probably just stress. And Ed Tewksbury, there are only 2 left by the end. There's Ed Tewksbury and Tom Graham. Tom Graham has left Pleasant Valley area. He's living in Tempe. Ed Tewksbury gets a string of horses, rides to Tempe, shoots Tom Graham, and rides back. He and a partner get indicted for it, and they try him during the court, while it's in court, and this would have been the last shot of the Pleasant Valley feud. Tom Graham's wife is in the audience, and they're giving the evidence and stuff like that. She reaches into her purse, pulls out a Colt's revolver, sticks it up to Ed Tewksbury's head, and pulls the trigger, and it misfires. To this day, nobody's sure why. It was fully loaded. When they went out, took it out, checked it, there was bullets in every chamber, and every one of them they have no idea why it didn't work. That would have been the last shot, but it didn't happen that way. Ed Tewksbury does not get convicted. He is released. He moves to Gila County, and he starts mining. He's up in the Payson Hills. I run across things where they're like, oh yeah, he's out there prospecting and that kind of thing. He finally dies. He's now buried in Globe. If you go to the old Globe Cemetery up on the hill, his grave is the first one when you walk in the door, along with the Tewksbury family. So, yeah, so the Tewksburys technically win, but at what price? Everybody's dead. Except Jim Roberts, who is, quote, the last man standing. We'll get to that in a moment, too. So, let's see here. And that's the old Yavapai County Courthouse. Anybody been to Prescott? Doesn't this look so much nicer than the new one? I like this. Okay. And there's William Bucky O'Neill. According to legend, they called him Bucky because he had a fondness for bucking the tiger, which is playing Pharaoh. He was an inveterate gambler and inveterate cigarette smoker, and he was also the sheriff of Yavapai County for about 2 years. He made his name chasing down the Canyon Diablo robbers. He chased them over 600 miles before he caught them, all the way into Utah, even though, well, he didn't have jurisdiction. But that's beside the point. Minor. He catches them, brings them back, and it makes his career. He ends up getting elected mayor of Prescott, and many years later he joins Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Rider. He was killed at the bottom of San Juan Hill. There's a story about that. Sorry, I digress, but it's a good story. Allegedly, there were snipers up at the top of San Juan Hill, Spanish snipers. They were using Mausers, and he's walking back and forth. Teddy Roosevelt said he was just walking back and forth, smoking. Everybody's prone, shooting back up at the snipers. They're like, Bucky, get down, Bucky, get down. And he goes, you're going to get hit. These guys are good. And he goes, there's not a Spanish bullet made that can kill me. Moments later, bullet goes right down his throat. Yeah, so they did find that he was buried there, but they did retrieve his body, move it back to Prescott. He is there. Anyway, a little background on Bucky O'Neill. Interesting. There's a couple good books about him if you ever get a chance. Interesting character. He's also a newspaper publisher. He did a lot of things, really active. But he appoints Jim Roberts as a deputy sheriff. And this is probably based almost exclusively on the fact that Roberts was considered good with a gun. Just so you know, interesting, and if you've read any of the stuff about Roberts, Roberts liked to carry an old Colts 45 Peacemaker. I mean, everybody knows what that is. He didn't wear a holster. He carried it in his pocket. Like, that was his normal way of carrying it. Probably a leather-lined pocket, but yeah, he just walked around with a gun in his pocket. Just doesn't sound safe, but that's me. Bucky O'Neill hires him as deputy sheriff, and he assigns him to Congress Junction, now Congress. Got a couple of things that come out of that. He's chasing horse rustlers, this kind of thing. He chases one group into Jerome, up here near Jerome. They get lost. He actually is able to get back all the horses because they were so hot on the tail of the rustlers that the rustlers abandoned not only the horses they stole, but their own horses and hoofed it up into the hills. However, it was getting to be nightfall, so the posse, Jim Roberts and the posse, were like, okay, let them go. We got the horses back, and that's really what matters. And they returned to Jerome, and then back to Prescott with the horses, or back to Congress with the horses. So he does this for a little while, and finally, let's see, 1882. During the elections, W.W. Nichols is elected as Justice of the Peace as Jerome, and Roberts gets his first job as a town constable. This is where his career really starts getting interesting. The Pleasant Valley feud, because we don't know, and he never admitted to anything, how much involved he was in that. I mean, there was a lot of bodies came out of that, and we're not sure who killed who. But this we really start having a really good record of it. However, the unfortunate part is I have not been able to find the Justice Court documents. So a lot of this is just coming straight from the newspapers. Basically, as city marshal, as city constable, he was arresting people who committed crimes locally, usually small stuff, a lot of drunks, a lot of minor thefts, this kind of thing. And so a lot of this would have been run through the Justice Court, not the District Court. And but unfortunately, we can't find the dockets for that, so we really don't know a lot of this. Let's see. So yeah, Roberts gets assigned to Jerome. He's still holding a deputy sheriff's committee, deputy sheriff's commission, and now he's also become constable. He quickly discovers how tough Jerome is. In early May, a local blacksmith and some friends were having a jovial time, quote, to the annoyance of others, and Roberts was called in and arrested the men. On the way back to the jail with his prisoners, the blacksmith attacked Roberts and dealt him a swinging blow in the eye with his fist. No sooner had the blacksmith's fist landed on the deputy's eye. This is a quote from the thing. The deputy's eye, however, till the latter six-shooter came in contact with the blacksmith's skull, falling him like a log. That's from the Journal Mino. So he's starting to realize, okay, this is maybe not what I signed up for. But he sticks this out for a long time. As I said, unfortunately, Justice Court legislature has been gone. There's a few other stories. Let's see here. And there's Jerome back in the time. It was the Arizona Republic who first because said that Jerome was wicked. But it was the Los Angeles Herald, which dubbed it the wickedest town in the West. So they did this big expose, and there's a lot of these exposés about Jerome. It was really, it was a big boom camp. It was bigger than Tombstone, and they had everything you could possibly want at that time. There was gambling, there were houses of prostitution. It was what they would call a wide open town. Let's see. Jerome has his first large fire, April 24, 1894. The paper said the loss is complete and not a dollar's worth of property was saved from the 12 buildings consumed. That's from the Journal Miner, including the town's jailhouse. In July of that year, Roberts arrested Frank Needham for beating a local woman. He didn't have a jailhouse to put him in. So Roberts decides it's a really good idea. He chains him to a wagon wheel out in the street. Okay, that seems to be working. And then he goes away, goes about his duties. When he comes back, he finds that Needham has removed the wagon wheel and is literally walking around town chained to this wagon wheel. So he's pretty easy to track down. Roberts grabs him, rearrests him, takes him back to the wagon, and chains him with not only the front wheel, to the back wheel. And that, I guess, was enough to hold him until he could get him over to Yavapai County, because the guy faced an assault charge, which went to the district court. Let's see. The first reporting of a shooting by Roberts, and this I was still looking for information on. Really hard to find. There's big gaps in the newspaper history. Pretty much 3 Mexicans attempted to take in Billy Morris's faro game in Jerome by force on July 22nd, 1884. Morris fired a shot at one of the assailants but missed him in the dark. Roberts then appeared on the scene and took a hand in the game. The deputy wounded one of the men, and the other 2 were taken into custody. And so this is the first record we have of him having to actually use his gun. He doesn't kill the guy, but we're still getting an idea. He's not one to be really messed with. And this reputation he gets, is what keeps Jerome from being a really crazy town like Tombstone was. He had a close call in late October of that year. He attempted to arrest a man named Hand. Hand pulled a knife on Roberts and cut him several times across the forehead. The wounds, they said, were not fatal, but they were ugly and painful. The Weekly Journal did not state whether Roberts was able to subdue the assailant and place him under arrest. I'm still looking for the court records to see if this guy was taken over to Yavapai or taken over to Prescott. Like I said, some of these records are really spotty. In November, George C. Ruffner is elected Yavapai County Sheriff. In August of the following year, Ruffner revokes Roberts' deputy sheriff's commission. We have no idea why. However, Roberts by this time has been elected city marshal. He's now in charge. He has constables under him, and he is Jerome's top law officer. A telegraph from Under Sheriff Dillon was received in Prescott on October 9th of that year, advising Sheriff Ruffner that Roberts had run down a man named Juan Garcia. Juan Garcia, who was armed at the time, made an attempt to resist, and Roberts was obliged to shoot him. Garcia died at noon the next day. The crime which Garcia committed, said the Journal, was a cold-blooded one, and the victim was being cruelly and cowardly murdered, and that too with a motive other than petty jealousy. From what we understand, Garcia had a problem with this guy who was allegedly seeing his wife and decided just to take him out. And of course, then Roberts hunts him down and he takes Garcia out. Said actually Garcia, quote, emptied his six-shooter at the officer before Roberts killed him. So this is the first record we have of Roberts actually killing somebody in the line of duty. a lot of these officers, Commodore Perry Owens, John Slaughter of Tombstone, people like this have these reputations as being killer lawmen, where there's Commodore Perry Owens, for example, there's some records where it's like, well, he went out for the rustlers and came back with the horses, but nobody knows what happened to the rustlers. John Slaughter was the same way. And a lot of this, however, is legends. We can't account for any of these. When Commodore Perry Owens had his big shootout in Holbrook, he was indicted for that, he was taken for a preliminary examination for murder after killing the Blevins boys and Mose Roberts. They actually gave testimony to figure out if they were going to hold him to indict him for the grand jury. Even when lawmen killed somebody, they usually had a preliminary examination. They would either exonerate the lawman or they would hold him for the grand jury. So these records, with this happening, I tried to look for the grand jury, the preliminary examination. I couldn't find it. I'm assuming it was considered, Roberts was exonerated, but the record isn't there. So, but being that Roberts goes right back to work, probably what happened. Okay, let's see. Sorry. So in 1896, let's go back one. So 1896, August 1896, the Roberts have their second son. He's named James Franklin Jr. He was already born by this time. That was his first son. The following year, Roberts quits being the city marshal in Jerome to work on his ranch. He decides to go back to ranching. He's had enough of being a lawman, at least for a while. Following this notice, Jim Roberts' name ceased to appear in the press for some time. However, in July of 1899, Jenny Roberts has the couple's third child, Nellie, and that same month, the Arizona Silver Bell reported that the Gila County Board of Supervisors had appointed James Robert constable and sanitary officer. I know it's amazing how many things these guys end up doing as city marshal, because they would not only be city marshal, they would also be tax collectors. And in a moment here, we'll get to his other duty. He doesn't last long there. He decides he doesn't want to work. He doesn't like Globe for some reason, and decides to return to Jerome. And once again, and by September of 1899, they're living there. Citizens of Jerome, the following year in April, elect him back to being the city marshal. They loved him. Roberts beats out the incumbent and the constable who was under the incumbent. Okay, so this is another one of those things that they don't talk about in the Old West books, the Old West stories. And this, I found it kind of funny, so I included it. Oh, hold on, sorry. Okay. And that's Bob Parsons, one of the many people that Roberts apprehended. This is his prison photo. Interesting thing about the Yuma prison photos, usually they took two of them. The first one was taken when they got in. Still had their mustaches, had their hair. Immediately afterwards, they shaved their heads, shaved their facial hair, and took another photo of them in their stripes. And most of the ones that are available are the ones in the stripes. And this is one of the other only known pictures of Roberts. That's Hugh on the burro, and that's the family home in Jerome. We don't have a date for this picture. It's a nice little place. I haven't been able to determine whether it still exists or if it's one of the ones that slid down the hill. Okay, so in May of 1900, the issue of stray dogs was addressed by Roberts. The Jerome Mining News asked, "Is your pup worth $5? That is the question which troubles the minds of all those who own dogs in Jerome. Marshal Roberts will assist you to decide within the next few days." Yes, so he was also the town's dog catcher. From as often as they make mention of it, there seemed to be a really big problem with stray dogs in Jerome, and it's like there's several articles in the Jerome newspaper about Robert's and trying to get these people to come get their dogs, which is just wandering around on the streets. At one point, he has 13 of them in the city pound, and somebody goes and releases them all. And they're back out on the street, and he has to go clean them all up again. One of the funnier ones, and depending if you're a dog owner or not, but it's still mildly amusing, the Silver Belt announced Jerome has a dog that is a hop fiend. Okay, hop fiend was basically an opium addict. Now, how does this happen? So allegedly there was a gambler in town who had a habit, and he decided to have because he didn't want to get high alone, he decided to get high with his dog. Well, and he kept doing this. The dog began to, and finally, however, unfortunately, the gambler leaves town and leaves the dog behind. And he said the dog had no problem getting fed, but what it really wanted was more opium. And so it would wander around howling pitifully in the streets. People would give it bones, give it food, and it just like, no, I want something else. So anyway, finally, Jim Roberts becomes aware of the problem. He goes, you know what? I'm just going to go down to the Chinese Quarter, get a big dose, and dose this dog. We do not know if he ever did, but that was going to be his solution to what to do with this poor animal. So, there's also another really amusing story, also from the Jerome News. The editor is like, Marshall Roberts is doing a very good job of cleaning up these dogs, capturing this when he can with his lasso. And however, we have a serious donkey problem here. There's too many mules wandering around, and you should start shooting some of those too. Well, I guess a lot of people came up there with mules as pack animals and stuff, and then once they got there, just let them go. And so they actually had a real big problem with mules wandering around Jerome like they do down in, yeah, exactly. So, let's see. On July 27th, the Arizona Republican, that was the actual original name of the Arizona Republic, reported a Mexican had been apprehended by Roberts with Deputy Hawkins with a murderous-looking knife on his person. Okay, that doesn't sound like a terrible thing. However, and this is one of those things nobody ever talks about, the territorial legislature in 1895 passed a law making it illegal to carry a weapon in any town, settlement, or city in Arizona. And see these people walking around going, this is the West, I can carry whatever. No, you would get arrested. You would be fined, your weapon would be taken. And so working on a book about the Arizona Rangers. A lot of the arrests they made were for people carrying concealed weapons. It was illegal until we got statehood. They rewrote the laws, and that's when they decided that they didn't need it anymore. Most of the towns already had a law of this nature. Tombstone, of course, they have theirs in 1881 because of all the violence. They thought this was a good solution. Obviously, it's not. We still shoot each other. Anyway, that's beside the point. Let's see. Okay, so Bob Winchester, what a name. Okay, Bob gets arrested, minor offense. He's fined, given a choice, he's fined $50 and sentenced to 60 days in the jail. Well, Bob was not happy with his sentence, and he threatened to burn the jail down. So on August 14th, he did just that. All of a sudden, they saw smoke billowing out of the Jerome jail. People started panicking. They ran to the jail. They could try to tried to beat the door down. It wouldn't. The thing was a reinforced door. It wouldn't move. They finally got a sledgehammer and beat the lock off of it. Roberts shows up on the scene. He helps out with getting in there, and as soon as the door's off, Mr. Winchester comes strolling out like it's no big deal that he just set the Jerome jail on fire. So they get the fire put out. Roberts takes custody of Winchester while this is happening, and then he returns him back into the jail, locks him in a different cell, and takes away all his bedclothes so he can't do it again. But this is the kind of things he was having to deal with. It's kind of amusing, some of the stuff that they that it became almost a joke, and you'll see here in a minute. Let's see. On September 4th, Marshal Robertson arrested an incarcerated man. During the course of the arrest, the man resisted, and Roberts was obliged to thump him into submission. Robert hit the belligerent individual with a bunch of keys he had in his hand. Unfortunately, when he did that, the key stuck through his own palm, and so he had to go have his palm sewn up. He was able to take the man into custody and get him to the jail before he did so. But yeah, don't hit somebody with a bunch of keys. It's not a good idea. On the evening of February 15th, 1901, Roberts attempted to take a Mexican to jail, and a lot of the times they didn't name these people at all, especially if they were Hispanic. They would just say a Mexican. You wouldn't get a name. That's one of the reasons I'm looking for the dockets, because I want the names of these people. The fellow, however, objected to being arrested, and Roberts utilized a rubber-covered club which he had been presented with which to use on such special occasions. A club that was warranted to do effective work without spilling any blood. However, every time Roberts struck the man, who was described as being very large, the man laughed at him and at his efforts and continued to try to escape from him and became more and more desperate. Finally, the man broke from Roberts and began to run. Roberts called on him to stop or to surrender, but the man only ran faster. Roberts then pulled his pistol and fired 2 shots at the fleeing man. He was uncertain if he hit the guy. The guy just kept running. However, that evening, there was some women from the Mexican part of Jerome searching around for bandages and food and stuff like that. So there's a fairly good chance she hit him, but there's no follow-up on the story, so we don't know if he ever actually caught him. Let's talk about Mr. Miller here. Lewis L.C. Miller. He was a forger. Fairly minor thing. I think he was looking at 2 years in the territorial prison for doing so. However, he was put in a cell with James Fleming Parker. James Fleming Parker was an outlaw. He had robbed a train coming out of the Northern Atlantic and Pacific train. He got nothing because when the train was about to be robbed, he was in the front dealing with the engineer. His partner, who had all the dynamite, got killed by the expressman. Parker didn't hear it happen. He shot him off the train, and so when they got the train out to rob it, let's back up. Back in the day, to rob a train, you didn't go after the passengers. Bad move, because a lot of them could be armed. You might get resistance. Typically in a train robbery, they would get on the train at the station. They would take it out about 2 miles, stop it, get off, get into the express, get into the express car and blow the safe, because that's where all the money was. You'd have to deal with the passengers. Usually they would take the first, of course you had the engine, you had the tender, and the next car was usually almost always the express car. So you could actually cut it right there and leave all the passengers back behind so nobody would interfere. This is how train robberies were done for the most part in the Arizona Territory. Well, they did this, except while they were still at the station, the express messenger saw the accomplice, and they never actually figured out what the guy's name was, snuck out the back of the express car, went out and shot him. And so he fell off the train into the depot, and Parker and the engineers pulled the train out. Well, they get out there, and they find the express car is locked, and he has no dynamite to get into it. So he steals like the watches and some change and from the train man, and he runs into the hills. He gets tracked by Yavapai County Sheriff Ruffner. Ruffner tracks him into the Grand Canyon area. It takes them almost 2 weeks to catch him. When they finally do, they bring him back. By this point, train robbery was a capital offense. It would get you hanged. They never actually hanged anybody for committing a train robbery. It's just that was the punishment the legislature had passed. So Miller here is in a cell with Parker and a guy named Sabata, and they decide one evening to escape. So Sabata Jim says he needs water, feigns sickness. The jailer comes in, he opens the cell, they start to fighting. Lewis and Miller and Parker, they run for the guns. They get a shotgun and a pistol, and all of a sudden the assistant district attorney appears in the stairwell. Parker, pretty much running on adrenaline, takes a shotgun and blasts him. The guy dies about a day later. Weirdly, he shot him with birdshot and still killed him. So the guy dies. Now Parker has just become a murderer, and Miller is his accomplice. Well, Miller, Sabata, and Parker ride out of town. Parker does what he knows best. He heads for the Grand Canyon. Sabata heads for Mexico, and Miller, he heads for Jerome, where his sister lives. Yeah, if you're ever on the run, don't go to family. So he gets there. He finally shows up. About 2 or 3 days later, he's ragged. They said his clothes are torn, he's bleeding. He shows up at the train station there, and people are looking at him kind of like, you look a little, and he's like, oh no, my horse left me, but makes excuses, but he's just sort of runs from the train station and disappears again. Well, at this time, he gets reported to Roberts, and Roberts says, oh, now that sounds interesting. That sounds like one of the men I got a telegraph about. And so he also knows that Miller's sister lives in town. His brother-in-law is a deputy sheriff named Fairchild. So he pretty much knows, Roberts is bright. He figures out that this guy's in town, and so he decides to stake out some of the roads up to the smaller mines. And sure enough, he finds a guy coming up there with a big package of food. And he's like, who are you taking this to? And he's like, nobody. He goes, okay, come on. He goes, well, there's a guy up here. And he goes, okay, well, we'll go up there, deliver it, and bring him back down, and I'll hide and wait for you to get him close to me, and I'll arrest him. Well, it seemed like a really good idea. Unfortunately, Miller had come down to meet the guy to get the food, saw him talking to Roberts, and realized he was probably about to get caught. So he went back up to the mine, hid there, and when the guy went back, the accomplice went up to the mine, came back down, and said, yeah, he's up there. And Robert's like, okay, then I'll wait for him tomorrow, because he's got to come down this path at some point. Don't bring him any food tomorrow. Well, in the meantime, so Roberts leaves the scene. Miller comes down, and he goes directly to his sister's house, where by this time, Deputy Sheriff Fairchild has shown up, the brother-in-law, and Fairchild is the one who actually makes the arrest. However, Fairchild does promise Roberts and the other deputy that was with him that they would split the money, the reward money. Fairchild later would renege on this deal and say, no, I did it all myself. These other guys weren't involved at all. And Roberts gets cheated out of his part of the reward money. So and that's, he ends up getting a life sentence, but it gets commuted because really he was an accomplice. He's only in there for forgery. He's out within about 10 years. Parker gets hanged at the courthouse in Yavapai County for the murder of the assistant district attorney. So it was short. But yeah, it's it was a major thing because Robert's name was very much involved in it, and he was pretty much the one who figured out where he was, and almost the one who caught him. Okay. And this is kind of cool. This is when Roberts was a candidate for the town marshal, which is his little card that he would pass out to people as a calling card. Kind of interesting. It's actually held in a museum in Los Angeles. Let's see here. Jenny Roberts presented her husband with a daughter on September 4th, 1901. The girl was called Myrtle. In April 1902, Roberts was reelected to the position of city marshal. Okay, here comes the sad part. And We'll get to this in a second. So James Franklin, Nellie, and Myrtle all die June 1902 of scarlet fever, all three of them within days of each other, which leaves them basically, they have one son left, and that's Hugh. All the other kids are now gone. Let's see. In March of 1903, and this is kind of amusing anecdote. The news press, which was a local printing company, ran an advertisement in the Jerome newspaper for their fine job printing. Their officers were located on the Bartel block, and they said, quote, on the street down which Jim Roberts takes drunken people to Judge St. James Police Court. Like, what a way to, it's how I advertise my business. Yeah, it's the street that they take the drunks down. But I thought that was kind of amusing. Okay, so Roberts has been city marshal of Jerome. This is a quote from the, let's see. J.F. Roberts, who's been city marshal of Jerome almost since the first house was erected on the present town site, and who was reelected at the last election without any opposition, has resigned, said the Jerome Mining News on April 4th. The newspaper went on to praise Roberts, saying, Jim is acknowledged by all to be one of the best peace officers in the Southwest, and his record of Jerome proves this. Jim has many friends in this part of Arizona whose best wishes go with him and his family to their new house. This is the point where he decides to quit being a city marshal, take it easy, and he goes down to Cochise County, specifically Douglas. He's going to work for the Copper Queen Mining Company. Jenny gave birth to another son on May 31st. The boy was named Walter D. Walter, unfortunately, had something wrong. From what I can find, he spends most of his life incarcerated in the insane asylum in Phoenix. He probably from his teens, from what I can tell from the census. He just keeps appearing in the census in Phoenix with all the other incarcerated people there. It's probably pretty safe to assume that the death of the kids really prompted the Roberts to leave Jerome. I mean, that would be a really hard thing. I mean, it takes them a little while to decide to do this, but yeah, finally they're like, we're done. And I mean, at this point also you have to consider Jim's age. He's getting up there a little bit. He's well into his 50s by now. He goes into work in the private sector, the employee of the Copper Queen Mining Company based in Bisbee. And after this, for quite a while, he receives very little mention because he's no longer an law officer. He's now a private detective. There is one really good story. I love this one. Possibly the strangest arrest I heard of him ever making was while he is the night watchman down there. On January 29th, 1907, a guy named Angel Lopez decides he wants a house. So he steals one. He literally steals a house. It's basically kind of one-room cabin. He gets the house. He loads it up onto the back of a wagon and starts driving it away. Now, the only problem is the Copper Queen Mining Company really liked the houses that they supplied for their miners. And, you know, he's stealing a house. And he actually gets fairly far with it before Roberts catches up to him. And, of course, yeah, he's like, you got a house on the back of your wagon. Really? So he gets, Lopez gets arrested, and let's see. In fact, actually, he gets so far as to get the house off the wagon, and had actually moved into it before Roberts figures out which house it is and goes and arrests him. So yeah, it's kind of despite his claim that he bought it from somebody else, they indicted him and took him to trial. Don't know quite what happened. Jenny Roberts had her last child, christened William Henry Roberts, on July 2nd, 1907. Roberts' family is still residing in Cochise County when the census of 1910 occurs. Roberts' occupation was listed as night watchman at the copper smelter. The smelters were located in the town of Douglas, just as south of Purtillville, where he was actually residing. And served the Copper Queen mines in Bisbee and in Bisbee, and the mines of Sonora. Hugh, who is now 17, was working at a local livery stable. So, okay. So then we get a little bit of gray area again. It's hard to track these things down. There's not really a whole lot of records. I did find a couple things. One, he is supplementing his income working as a deputy sheriff in Cochise County. I can't find anything about what he was doing, but they were tapping him whenever they needed an extra posse member. So I did find that, but I haven't found anything really concrete about this era. Okay, anybody ever read To the Last Man by Zane Grey? Oh, how did that happen? Okay, what button did I hit? Not me? Okay, good. Sorry. So, anybody ever read To the Last Man by Zane Grey? Okay, it's his fictional account of the Pleasant Valley feud. I think it's been turned into a movie at one point. He published this in 1921. Well, he resided outside of Payson for some time while he was researching this book. And he talked to a lot of people, especially at that time, and even to today. There's a lot of people, there's named Graham, and some still related to the Tewksbury's up there. Yeah, that's beautiful, Douglas, Arizona. And let's see here. So, and he decides, he hears that Jim Roberts is still alive. All the Tewksburys are now dead. The Grahams are dead. A lot of the other people who participated are gone. So he decides he wants to talk to Jim Roberts to get firsthand information about this. Jim Roberts agrees to meet him. However, he tells Mr. Gray, "I'm very pleased to meet you, but I'm not going to talk to you." Everything that Zane Grey got for the book, he got from Hugh, who his father had confided in him, and that's who he actually interviewed. Jim Roberts would not talk to him. Jim Roberts really was pretty taciturn kind of guy. He didn't talk a lot. He was, that old thing about a man of action being usually, strong, quiet type. He definitely fits the bill. Although a lot of people said he was real friendly, but it was probably just a passing thing. I don't think he was intimate with too many people. So yeah, and let's see, Zane Grey, and let's see. All right. Okay, this is one of the only other pictures. I do not know why he is holding a chalkboard. Haven't a clue, but this is one of the last pictures of him. He continued to work in law enforcement to the remainder of his life. He was a special officer for the Verde Valley Mining Company and held a deputy's commission at the same time. We don't know when he came to Clarkdale. I haven't been able to figure it out. There's one source, and I will say, there's one storyteller who said it was the year before the famous incident. However, I have not been able to figure out. This guy also said that he worked in Florence and he worked in Phoenix before he came to Clarkdale. I haven't been able to find records for either of that. I checked with the Pinal County Historical Society. They got no record of it. They can't find a commission or anything like that. So I'm not sure how true any of this is, or if he just continued to work for the Copper Queen until he decides to return. But let's see. So probably we're guessing about 1827 he comes back. They elect him city marshal here. He also holds a special commission as a special officer for the Verde Valley Mining Company. Kind of things go together. And okay, and then the big one. And so on June 21st, 1828, Roberts foils the bank robbery, and it makes front page news of the Arizona Republican. He's 72 years old. Now keep this in mind as age. William J. Forrester, or Willard, we're not really sure. He kept getting mixed up in the accounts. And Earl Nelson attempted to rob the Bank of Arizona in Clarkdale. I'm going to read this verbatim because it is the best record we have of it. But first, I'm going to tell you a story. Okay, since I was a kid, I've heard about this incident here. It was kind of family history. My cousins, Kirkland cousins, who lived in Prescott for a long time, basically the story came down that Jim was just randomly minding his own business, and every day he'd go to have lunch with the wife. This was his habit. He's a special officer. He's 72 years old. This is Clarkdale. Not a lot's happening here. Minor things, but he's not dealing with anything really heavy like he was a city marshal of Jerome. So he can go home to the wife. Well, on the day of the robbery, he's going home to the wife, and all of a sudden these guys come out of the bank shooting, bang, 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 trying to keep the crowds back and stuff like that. And they jump into the vehicle, start blowing down the street, and they're taking pot shots out the window. Allegedly, they take a pot shot at Jim. Oops. Jim takes out that Colt revolver, steps into the street, takes one shot, and puts it right through the back window, right through the driver's head, splatters his brains all over the windshield, and the car careens off and crashes. And the other guy jumps out, takes shots at Jim, and runs, and Roberts chases him down. Remember, the guy he's chasing is in his 20s, and he's 70 years old. The guy keeps shooting at him, and finally runs out of bullets. Roberts is right on him, and he says, "Okay, enough," and he surrenders. So that's the family legend. It's actually fairly close. That's part of the legend. So they take one guy to the morgue, they take the other guy to jail. Jim still returns home to the wife and Jenny, and apologizes for being late. She does not learn what happened until the next morning when she reads about it in the newspaper. And so, like I said, how true the story is, I'm not going to attest to. Actually, I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to give you the... according to the bank manager, Saunders, the two men came in. They were expecting to get the mine payroll. They expected it they started them... they go in, they start just sweeping the money into a gunny sack. They actually complain after they get the first batch of money, and they go, "There should be $20,000 here." And they say this to Saunders. Saunders goes, "We don't have 20, you got everything." He goes, "There's supposed to be $20,000 more." He goes, "That's everything." He goes, "Okay." So they are going to take the customers and the bank manager and the tellers and lock them in the safe. Saunders talks them out of doing it. He goes, "We'll suffocate in there." He goes, "That'll not only will you," and he's like talking to these guys really casually about this. He goes, "Not only will you be, when you get caught," and he assumed they were going to get caught. He goes, "Not only will you get caught and charged with bank robbery, you'll get charged with murder because you will be killing all of us." So the robbers decide, okay, forget it. We'll just let you stay in the bank. You come out of the bank, we'll shoot you. And they grab their gunny sack and they run out the door. Saunders says he immediately grabbed his revolver and he chases them outside. And the gunfight ensues between these two guys as they're getting into their automobile and Saunders. It is about this time Jim Roberts was actually there, but he wasn't going home to lunch with the wife. He was standing guard. That was his job. He sees what's happening, and he does just what he comes over shooting. It's actually not the first shot he takes. It's one of the 6 he has, and that's exactly what happens. He gets behind the automobile, and he puts one right through the back window, and he does kill the guy. Amazingly good shot, but then again, Jim Roberts, he was known for that. The car careens off, crashes, and Nelson jumps out and starts running. And as he's running, he's firing back at Jim Roberts. He's probably using an automatic pistol because by then that would have been commonplace. Jim Roberts still just got a 6-gun. Jim Roberts starts chasing him. He actually unloads that gun at Roberts. And finally, he's like out of ammunition. He's running. He's nowhere to go. Throws down the gun and surrenders. And Roberts takes him into custody. This becomes a huge event, especially the Prescott paper picks it up. The Phoenix paper picks it up. The Tucson paper. I mean, this is a really big thing, let's see, The governor, Hunt, actually congratulates both Saunders and Jim Roberts by name for their saving the payroll. Let's see. Trying to find the. The Arizona Daily Star said under the headline, "The Old West Still Lives." Jim Roberts, Yavapai County Sheriff, as quick on the draw and as steady of eye as he was in the days when the life of law enforcement agent in the mining camps of Arizona was a precarious one. Everybody thought this was the coolest thing. As I said, the governor actually congratulated them both. Under the headline, so that really becomes like a shining moment. He continues doing this. He does not leave law enforcement. He obviously likes it. And there's Clarkdale back in the day. Okay. He dies on January 2nd, 1930, about 2 years after the incident. They find him laid out behind the drugstore. He was just doing his rounds. They think it's probably cardiac arrest, and they find him prone. He's still breathing, he's still alive. They put him in an ambulance, try to get him to the Verde Valley Hospital. He expires on the way. He is buried with a very simple headstone, just as Roberts, and he's over in the Clarkdale Cemetery. I haven't been able to find exactly where his children are. They may be there, but there's also supposed to be another gravestone with simply written Roberts on it. They may be there, and that may be up near Jerome. I haven't been able to track that one down. Let's see. Permilla Virginia Jenny Roberts. What a name, Permilla. Yeah. Just be glad if you're, Mary. She dies June 9th, 1954, in the Pioneers' home up in Prescott. She was, she gets inducted into there. They bring her back and inter her right beside her husband in the Clarkdale Cemetery. And so, like I said, I'm still working on some research about it. If I can find enough, the book will be a couple years out. And of course, the Clarkdale Historical Society will have a copy of it when I get it read. If not, if you're really curious, I am going to send over the what I have so far of the manuscript to them, which has a little bit more information if you care to read it, care to study up on it a little bit. And with that, I'm done. Okay, give me just a moment. I need a drink of water, and I'm going to take questions.
And one is marked Zane Grey's Guide. Have you ever seen that?
Mm-mm.
And the other one, I always forget the name. It's a popular name from Arizona past. And at the end of the trail, there's a lot of ruins, ancient ruins.
I haven't run across that.
And the last time we were there, someone attempted to dig up the grave. But the stone is marked Zane Grey's Guide.
Yeah, I know Zane Grey was finally left Payson, left the Payson area. His cabin burned down years later, and it's been rebuilt inside Payson. But he finally got in an argument with the local law enforcement because they wouldn't let him shoot mountain lions out of season. And he threw a tantrum and said, "Okay, I'm out of here." And that was the last Arizona saw of Zane Grey. He did do several really good books about the area, if you like Zane Grey's writing style. There's Under the Tonto Rim. There's, of course, The Last Man. And there's about 3 or 4 others that are based on his time in Arizona. And but it's like, again, it's kind of historical fiction. So any other questions? Yes?
Do you have any idea where his children are buried?
No, I haven't been able to figure that out. I don't think they're in the cemetery here. I think they're probably in Jerome. I did, however, just pick up, I was in Jerome last night, and I picked up a Jerome cemetery record, and which has all the burials they could find in Jerome. I haven't had a chance to go through it. I just got it last night. I'm assuming that they're there, because since they died there, it would have been make sense to bury him there. So, but I haven't had time to peruse the record yet.
Right. For those of you who've never been to our museum, or if you have, we have a very special exhibit on the Clarkdale bank robbery. So I would urge you, we'll be open in a few minutes probably, to come by. And I was fascinated by this story for many, many years. And there was quite a altercation on the main block there as the robbers are pulling away. And we have the gold watch that stopped a bullet from a bystander. And it was a pocket watch that it was inserted, as many men wore pocket watches at that time. And the bullet actually stopped it. The family of, I don't remember his name now, Snyder from Flagstaff donated it to the museum. And it's the actual item itself. It's pretty fascinating. So, but we've given quite a bit of tribute to Jim Roberts. So this adds so much more. Yeah.
Also, a quick addendum. Later on, when he was taken to prison, they figured out that Nelson was actually Forrester's brother. They were brothers, and they'd grown up in Oklahoma, and they didn't figure this out until they actually got him in prison. He attempts to escape the prison 3 different times, is never successful, and finally gets pardoned about 20 years later. But yeah, he was not your model inmate. So, but just as a little addendum about the Forresters. Any other questions?
Where exactly is the cemetery up in Jerome?
It is, from what I understand, it's really inaccessible. It's down, like if you're going around the circle up there, it's down in the valley, and you have to traverse by foot down into the valley to go to it. I haven't been to it. Every time I'm up here, I don't have time to do it. But yeah, I understand it's down there. It's from what I go from, like, if you ask the locals, they'll go to the edge and point it out to you. So, but yeah, wear hiking shoes. It's a slog. Actually, going down is probably not so bad. As coming back up is going to get you. So.
You can get one of the old mules.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. Any other questions? Well, I thank you all for coming. And yeah. If you haven't been over to it, go take a look at the museum. It's really cool. So.